Okay. 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 So today is the part 4 of Jnana Yoga. What I thought is I'll do a little bit of more of consciousness because there's a lot of it's a little bit difficult to get that concept. And then I will talk about cosmology. That is, how does Vedanta talk about the universe? So let's start with the prayer. Om Ashatoma
Asatoma Sadgamaya
Tamasoma
Jyotirgamaya
Jyotmrityo
Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti.
Lead us from unreal to real, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality. Om peace, peace, peace. Okay, so quick revision. I think by now all of you should know what we said. There are 3 stages to studying the scripture: Shravanam, Mananam, and Vyasanam. Let me can you mute?
Shri, it's very disturbed. Can you put
Yeah.
everybody on mute?
Mute all. Okay, can you still hear me? Do I have to mute myself?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so we said 3 stages for understanding the scriptures: Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Basically, listening, comprehending, and then realizing. Right? Listening is making sure we can repeat what we have learned. Mananam is clearing all your doubts and clearing anything that questions that you may have. And Nididhyasanam is actually meditating, dhyanam, and then understanding it, realizing it. There are, as human beings, we always have goals, and the goals are can be classified under 4: artha, kama, dharma, and moksha. Artha, kama, dharma are called prayas. These are material goals, and moksha is the goal to which we all aspire to, which is freedom from dependence on any external entities. And we said there are practices that you need to do in order for us to get to that stage. The only way to get moksha is Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, by removing the ignorance that we have. And in order to get that Jnanam, we need to do Upasanam, which helps us to focus the mind. And in order for us to get there, we need to do Karma Yogas. Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga are pre-qualifiers by which we reach, the qualifications required to be a seeker of moksha, which is called a mumukshu, right? So that's what we talked about. And then we talked about Karma Yoga. We said, the right attitude, right things to do. Upasana Yoga, disciplining your personality. And then Jnana Yoga, we talked about various things in Jnana Yoga. And we are trying to discover what our true selves are. And in that context, we talked about Shariratrayam, which is Stula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and Karana Shariram. And we talked about Avastatrayam, the 3 states in which you experience the world. Jagrata Avastha, which is the waking state in which we experience the waking world, or Jagrata Prapancha. And Swapna Avastha, which is a dreaming state where we create our own Prapancha, which is called the Swapna Prapancha, and we participate in it mentally, right? And Susupti Avastha is when we go to deep sleep and we leave behind our bodies, we leave behind our mind, and we are in total blankness. And then in the last class, we went through the Panchakoshakam, which is the 5 sheets of the body. We started with Annamaya Kosha, which is the food made sheet, which is your physical body. which is equivalent to your Stula Shariram. Then we said we go deeper, and that's life. We talked about Pranamaya Kosha, which is the physiological system, and then the Manonmaya Kosha, which is the psychological function. And then we went deeper to the intellect, and from there we said there is a layer of bliss called Anandamaya Kosha. So before the beginning of this class, Vivek asked me to spend a little time in explaining Karana Shariram and Anandamaya Kosha because he's still a little bit unclear about it. So let me spend a couple of minutes on that. So one of the principles we said is that there is conservation of matter, which is there is nothing that is created or destroyed. Whatever exists gets manifested in different ways. So if you take a tree, that whole tree is there in potential form in the seed, right? So Karana Shariram is something like that. It is a seed or potential form of your body, right? Uh, and from that, your body, your Sukshma Shariram gets manifested, and from that, you get your Stula Shariram. Now, if you take Susupti Avastha, when you're having deep sleep, you are basically, okay, in dream sleep, you forget about your physical body, right? You create your own representation of your body in your dream, and you create other things, and you have a different experience in your dream sleep. But you are still experiencing, you are awake to a different world. Uh, and that is your mind, right? That's your Sukshma Shariram is still participating. But when you go into deep sleep, you actually forget even your mind and your intellect, right? You're no more, you don't know who you are, you don't know your role, you don't know you're sleeping there, you don't know your body, you're totally blank. And that state is what is equivalent to your Karna Sharira. You're in your potential form. You're not yet manifested as a mind or an intellect or a body, right? Anandamaya Kosha is basically that layer where you are facing that blankness. And we said when we are, even though we may have hundreds of worries or hundreds of responsibilities, during the deep sleep, you don't experience the stress of any of that. And that's why sleeping is so rejuvenating, right? You basically forget about all the samsara, all the interactions or transactions that you are involved in, and you go into a deep sleep, and that ignorance, that blankness gives you a certain bliss, and that's why it's called Anandamaya Kosha. So if we take the Russian doll simile, this is like removing each doll. The Annamaya Kosha you remove, you find Pranamaya Kosha. You remove that, you find Manonmaya Kosha. And then you find Vijnanamaya Kosha. And final doll we said is the Anandamaya Kosha. I'll pause there. Is that clear for you, Vivek, or you still have any questions? You'll have to unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, so means that confusion was because like Karna Sharira also is not destroying, right?
Yes.
So because when body dies, the Sukshma Sharira moves on, then Karma Sharira still stays, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the confusion was. It's
Yeah.
like Atma is not destroyed.
Yeah, so it is not, see, nothing is destroyed. What happens in the Karana Sharira state, according to Vedanta, is that you, there is a cycle. And when we talk about cosmology, we'll talk a little bit about this as well. Maybe end of this class, we'll come back to this to see if it's clarified or not. But what we are saying is there is the universe is in a potential stage at some point, which we call the singularity, from which it gets, it gets manifested, it becomes the universe. And we'll talk about how it becomes the universe. At the same way, your Karana Shariram is in a singular point. It's like one point, right? And then it becomes multiple bodies, multiple Sukshma Sharirams get manifested out of that Karana Shariram. Now, that is a cycle that goes back and forth. The universe manifests, then it becomes singular again. Then after some time, it manifests again, it becomes singular again. That is called the pralayam. Pralayam is when the whole universe collapses into itself. And that's when Karna Shariram actually goes back into that singularity. So Karana Shariram has a longer cycle than Sukshma Shariram and Stula Shariram. Sukshma Shariram has a longer cycle than Stula Shariram, and Stula Shariram has the least cycle. Stula Shariram is like your clothes. We shed it, we get another set of clothes, we wear it, and we go along. So hopefully that is a little bit clearer. I will go through cosmology and then we'll come back to this if you don't
I
mind.
means one more point which you might want to address later on means when manifestation is not happening, that means its universe is not in yet in cycle. Then where is Atma?
Okay, so Atma is not any of this, right? And that's Atma is not an object, first of all. It is an experiencer, right? We'll talk about Atma in a little in detail today as well, because I know that's a question that is very, that's difficult to comprehend. You need to go through multiple times.
Yeah.
So all of these, Karana Shariram, Atma, Kosha, all that is stated in this page is everything is Anatma, right? None of this is Atma, because these are all objects. These are all objects that we experience. If you look at, all the 5 sheets, this is something that we experience. We can see the body, we can feel the body, we feel the life, we feel the mind, we can experience the mind, right? When you say I'm happy, you're actually experiencing the mind. When you say I think this is better to do, I'm experiencing my intellect. So when you are in deep sleep, you are experiencing Anandamaya Kosha. Everything that is stated here is something that you experience. Atma is something that is the experiencer and not the experience. Atma can never be the experience. And that's why we went through those 5 arguments of Vidyaranya, which basically said, the one that is easy to understand is the sugar example, right? When we said, when you take sugar and water and milk, to make the milk sweet, we add sugar. To make water sweet, we add sugar. We can't talk about adding sugar to make sugar sweeter. Similarly, your Atma is what makes you aware of anything. If I look at a house, it's because I am bringing Atma to that, my experiencing that house. If I'm experiencing a table, that's because I bring consciousness into that. Now, I cannot add consciousness to consciousness. It's like adding sugar to sugar, right? So that is the difference. So all of these which we experience is not Atma. Atma is the experiencer. And we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail today.
Can I just
So,
comment, please?
Sri, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Just that is the cycle of rebirth or reincarnation would be the Karana Shriram.
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
So when we talk about the cycle of rebirth, is that
There are
the
2
Karana
parts to the
Shriram?
rebirth, right? There are 2 parts to the rebirth. During one existence of the universe, your rebirth is due to Sukshma Shariram. It has nothing to do with Karna Shariram, right? Sukshma Shariram comes in, it goes out of your physical body and gets into another physical body and comes out as another person. So that is your rebirth. That is Punarjanma. Janma happens with every time you die, you're born again as something else. You need not be human, but it could be a dog or it could be something else, any sentient being, right? Karana Shariram is a seed and it's not one purpose. It's like, it's not an individual thing. It's a nirvikalpa. We said it's all mixed up in one seed form. Okay, so look at it as 2 cycles. One is your birth and rebirth. One is the birth of the universe and rebirth of the universe. Okay, so let's go through this and we'll come back to the end of the class to see if there is more doubt we can clarify.
There is not enough light on your face. Sometimes it becomes very dark.
Oh, okay. There's not enough light on my face. Yeah.
You're going between Stula Shariram and Sukshma Shariram.
Let me turn this way. Maybe this will help. Is it better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about consciousness. I'm going to give a few. I mean, I'm going to walk you through the same thing that we went through yesterday, plus a little bit different perspectives. So hopefully, the consciousness becomes a little bit better in your understanding. We said that consciousness remains the biggest mystery, and it continues to be a mystery, right? Um, Vedanta has tried to define it, and it's defined as something that is neither part, property, or product of your body. It's not associated with your body. It's independent entity which pervades and makes the body sentient. It is not limited by the boundaries of the body. It is all pervasive, and it survives the body, right? This is this is something that we need to repeat to ourselves to understand, because most of the time we think that consciousness is a result of having a body. The body has consciousness. It's the other way around. It's consciousness which is having the body, right? And that takes a while for us to get. And I said the best example for this is light. When you see anything, when you see any object, you need to have light. But light is not part of that object. It is not the property of that object. It is not the product of that object. It only, enshrines that body for you to see it. So Atma is like that. Atma is everywhere, and it basically enlivens your body. And when we talk about Brahman and the cosmos, we'll talk about the definition of ultimate consciousness as well. Okay, so this is a definition that I want all of you to kind of almost read it, take it by heart, like Tripti says. So every time you think of consciousness, you're thinking it's not part, property, or product of the body. It is an independent entity. It is unlimited by the boundaries of the body. It survives the body, and it's all pervasive. So we said we have to shift the vision, and the shifting the vision is all about this. This is a very interesting statement somebody made, which caught my attention, which said, I am a spiritual being having a human experience and not a human being seeking a spiritual experience. That's the shift we need to make, right? We all think we are humans. I'm trying to realize this Atma, or I'm trying to get this spiritual experience. It's the other way around. We're all spiritual beings. We are going through this human experience because we are seeing or experiencing this world through this body, right? And that's a shift. I'm not a body with consciousness. I am a consciousness in a body, right? And Atma pervades, in and through the Anatma. So everything that we said, all the Panchakoshas and everything is Anatma, but Atma pervades this. When we say I, we generally refer to our body, which is the Stula Shariram, or we refer to a mind or intellect, which is a Sukshma Shariram. That's what we really think about when we think about body. But all of those are experienced by me, by the true I. And whatever is experienced is not me. So we talked about it, right? When you look at your hand, you say it's my hand, it's my body. So there is something beyond what you experience, and that is your Atma. We have to move away from the decaying body to Satchidananda, right? We said, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. How do I move from the dying, decaying body to the immortal Atma? The shift is extremely difficult to make because we are always very closely associated with the body. Everything that we do today, every act of ours is for the sake of the body, for the sake of the mind, for the sake of the intellect. Therefore, our association and our relationship to the body is very, very sticky. The mind, makes you believe that is you. When I say I want something, it's actually your mind which wants something, but there is something else which is experiencing that mind asking for it, right? So shifting is not an overnight and requires a lot of practice. And we got to keep telling us that I'm not part product or part property of the body, and I prevent the body and live in it. We talked about Drigdisya Viveka, which is seer and seen. And we took the example of a movie theater. So if you're watching a movie, you're sitting in the audience, you do see happy scenes and you see sad scenes. But at the end of the movie, you are not affected by it. You see sad scenes and you still say, oh, beautiful movie. That's because you are the seer. You are not the person who's acting or doing stuff. And at the end of the movie, we watch another movie, which is a dream movie, right? This is the other experience that we have. And we said the dream is nothing but a mishmash of experiences that we had in real life, either this life or previous life or the innumerable number of lives that we may have had before. All of those come into a dream, and that's what we see. And then we go into deep sleep and we see nothing, right? And this is the cycle that we go through every day. We watch some action, we watch some imaginary stuff, and then we watch a blank screen. So that's why we pray Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, because when you get the light, when the lights are switched on in the theater, you realize I am in the audience and I am not, participating in this movie. So that's what relieves you. This knowledge is what relieves you from the samsara, from getting entangled in the relationships and the wants and the raga dvesha that we are born with, right? There is a very interesting analogy. We all know Krishna likes butter, right? There is a significance to why he likes butter. If you look at milk and you pour milk into water, it is very difficult to extract the milk from the water. But you take butter and you put it in water, you can take out the butter, the water hardly sticks to the butter, right? That's an indication of how you should lead your life. You can involve yourselves in samsara. If you're like butter and water is like samsara, you can go headlong into living your life, but you should be able to pull yourself out of it without any attachments, without any water sticking to you. So that's one of the reasons why they portray Krishna as loving butter. So things to remember: I'm different from whatever I experience. So that's why you are the experiencer and you're free from the attributes of the experienced objects. So when you say, oh, I am sad or I have pain, you're talking about ahankara, which is your ego, not your true self, because your true self is not the experience. You are only experiencing it, right? Your mind is experiencing it and you feel that my mind is me. The ego that I've created in my mind, the I sense, which we talked about, right? We said even an amoeba has a sense of I, because we feel the amoeba's outer cell stops things from entering it, and that is a definition of I. For us, the skin seems to be the wall, right? The end of the skin is somebody else. But if you really look at it, the whole world that we experience is through our skin. So our skin can be seen as a link to the external world or as a wall from the external world. It's more of a link than a wall. So we talked about this, which is Adi Shankara's Nirvana Shatakam. It's actually 6 stanzas, but I've taken the first one. Here he says, I am not the mind nor the intellect. See, now when you read this, right, you will really get the meaning, because we have gone through all these terms. Mano, Buddhi, Ahankar, Chitta, Chittam, right? We saw that these are the 4 things in our mind. Like that, Netra, Shotra, all this are ear, nose, eye, Vyoma, Bhumi, Tejno, which is the Panchabhutani. We are none of those. We are pure bliss and I am universal consciousness. So I want to give, when we say, no, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, then there is a different thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is an anatomy of a wave. Okay, we see waves in the sea, and for us it's a simple wave, but for a surfer, it's a very interesting viewpoint. The wave has different parts, right? If you ask a surfer about the wave, he said there's something called lip, which is the top part, which actually pitches and breaks away. Then you have the shoulder. It is yet to be broken. It's just coming up. And the face of the face or wall of the wave, which is where you actually surf. And then you have the tube or barrel, which sometimes the wave actually forms like a circular thing for more experienced surfers. And then the pocket, which is actually just before it makes impact with the water. And that's called a pocket. And that's only done by very experienced, very advanced surfers. And then it impacts and becomes white water. And that's what they use to come back to land, right? It's a safe, it's just coming. So if I treat this as a Russian doll and I say, oh, I'm going to look for water. Let me see, let me get the lip out of the way. Let me get the shoulder out of the way. It's stupid because everything is water, right? So in one sense, whatever we did, even though we said this is anatma, this is anatma, this is anatma, ultimately, you know, all of that is dependent only on atma. If there is no atma, there is no anatma. So this is another perspective for us to think about. I didn't want to confuse you more, but think about it. When we are digging for, you know, it's like asking the wave, where is the water? Where is the water? Because ultimately, each wave is nothing but part of this big pool of water. And each wave thinks it's, and if you really look at it from all these different parts of the wave, some waves are small, some waves are big, some waves are, you know, slanting on the left side, some waves are slanting on the right side, but all of them are ultimately water. And that's how we are. We live, we think we are individuals, individuated life, but it's actually all part of Atma. The other perspective I wanted to give was also, I talked to you about this book by Alan Watts. And I took this limerick from his book. So it goes like this. There was a young man who said, though it seems that I know, what I would like to see is the I that knows me when I know that I know that I know. When I know that I know that I know. So he's looking for that man. But the thing is, that's a mistake, because Atma is not an object. You cannot look for that object. So if you take the example of how we see the world, you know, most often when we were kids, we were taught that eye is like a pinhole camera. You see something, it just goes through this retina and pastes this picture on your back of the eye, right? But then we always assume, okay, that means there is somebody in my, you know, somebody who's looking at that part of the brain and seeing that object. But it's not true, right? Because if you think about that, then whoever is sitting there has to have another guy who's seeing that and another guy who's having, it becomes a recursive thing, which becomes the seer, right? But visual perception is the conscious experience of vision, right? This is at least from a mind perspective. This is still just an experience of the vision. The way we perceive things is light reflects off the object, enters the eye. It enters as light. It, you know, no object is actually entering your eye, because if it enters, your eye will get, you will go blind, right? But what is entering is just the light. The light enters and it turns into electrical impulses through your optical nerve and goes into your brain, right? The object is nothing but electrical impulses in your brain. That's all there is. So when we say we experience this outside world, everything that you experience is actually inside your head. There is nothing else that you are actually seeing, right? Because even though it's the brain which says, okay, this is outside you, but everything that you experience is inside you, right? And a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, or maybe even more, I did this painting after thinking about this. Is there anything outside of you? When you see something, is it inside your head or outside your head? So this is another question to, do some nididhyasanam about, to think about what your experience is and who that experiencer is. So I thought I'll leave you with a couple of these questions for you to think through. But essentially, Atma consciousness is defined in Taittiriya Upanishad. I think we talked about it when we talked about the Panchakosham. It's defined as Brahman is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Okay, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Now, this is the definition of Brahman. This is the definition of Atman. And when you break this definition, if you take Anantam, for example, what is Anantam? Anantam means without end. It is unlimited. Unlimited by space, time, and objects. Now, space and time, okay, you understand. When I say it's unlimited by space, I'll come back to objects. When I say unlimited by space, I mean, if I am an object, I am here, I'm obviously not there. I'm not downstairs, right? I'm in San Jose. I'm not in Singapore. I'm not in Delhi. So I'm restricted by space. Atman or Brahman is unrestricted by space. That means it is omnipresent, right? It's everywhere. Then you say time. Everything has a date. We saw Stula Shariram, okay, it lives from 0 to 100. It was not there before you were born. It is not there after you die. Every object, even if you take sun, they're saying maybe 4 billion years from now, the sun will become a red dwarf and then it'll die, right? If you take galaxies, they're seeing galaxies merging into one another, becoming black holes and stuff like that. Everything has a life. They say that universe came into existence 13.8 billion years ago. So before that, there was no universe. After that, there is universe. So after some time, there will be no universe. But Atman and Brahman is something that exists eternally. It has got no beginning. It has got no end. Right? Now, objects. Let's talk about objects. What do we mean by unlimited by object? If you take an object, let's say I take this computer. This computer is a computer. It's not something else. It's not a sofa. It's not a bed. It's not a table. It's a computer, right? So it is limited by that object. So an object can be this and nothing else. Okay. When you say Atman is unlimited by objects, that means every object is Atman. Atman is there in every object. Brahman is there in every object. All of us would have heard the story of Prahalada. I don't know if many of you heard it. Prahalada was a kid. His dad was a Ashura called Hiranyakashipu. And he basically got a vow that he cannot be killed in the morning or in the night, or he cannot be killed by a human or an animal. And he had all these conditions. He can't be killed inside and outside or outside. And then when Prahlada was born, he became a devotee of Hari or Vishnu. And he learned that Vishnu is everywhere, right? And then when Hiranyakashipu asked him, is he everywhere? He said, yes, he'll be in a pin also, he'll be in this pillar also. And he said, will he be in this pillar? And he broke the pillar, and Narasimha, Vishnu came as half lion, half man, dragged him to the doorstep. So he's neither inside nor outside. He came in during dusk, so not in the morning, not in the evening, not in the night, and he kills. So that's told to us so many times, and we've heard that story so many times, to show that Brahman is everywhere, in every object, right? When you say it's in every object, which means there is no object which is not Brahman, which means there is no two, there's only one. And that is why we say it's Advaita, right? There is no two, there's only one. So that is the definition of Anantam. So it's a simple, looks like one word, but it's actually quite a complex word. Then we talk about Satyam. Satyam means reality. So what do we mean by reality? Everything, right? If this computer is real, this fan is real, this sun is real, this world is real, this galaxy is real. And we are saying, then how is Brahman everything? So what we are saying by that statement is, if you say the fan is, the computer is, the world is, there is the isness to every object. Every object exists, right? And that existence is Brahman. So the isness is what we are talking about when we say reality. So reality is two things. Just like we said, when we see an object, there is always light present, because without the light, you cannot see the object. If you are seeing anything, then there is light. Similarly, if without existence, if you say something exists but it's not existence, that's stupid, right? It's non-existent. So existence is what we mean by reality. Everything is that is Brahman. So we call it existence. Then we talk about jnana. Jnana means knowledge. Actually, what we are talking about is awareness. When it comes in your awareness, it becomes knowledge. Otherwise, you're saying knowledge in me is different from knowledge in you, is different from knowledge in you yesterday to today, etc. Right? So consciousness is what we mean. So when we talk about Brahman or Atman, the definition is existence, consciousness, and bliss. Bliss, why? Because when you say Anantam, we talked about it in the previous session. It is limitless. Ananta means limitless. Limitless means Purnatvam. Purnatvam is what leads to Ananda. Ananda, why? Because what we are looking for is completeness. If you're complete, you have everything, then you are happy. There's nothing for you to feel, desire or sadness or anything, because you have everything. So that's why we call Atma as Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, right? That is what is Atma. So the formal definition, we said Atma Chaitanya Swarupa, it's consciousness, it's non-material, it's Swatantra, it's independent, it's non-material and does not have any attributes, it is ever existence, and it is boundless, and it's only one, non-dual, right? So this is the formal definition of Atma. So hopefully, I've not confused you more, but helped to clarify a little bit more about Atma. But, consciousness, as I said, is foxing the most brightest scientists today. So it's not something easy to understand, but it's if you get it intuitively, if you really think about it for yourself, you do feel there is an experiencer behind everything, right? If you look at even our language, right? We say certain things, I did, or my hand, or when I say I'm writing, it's only I am not writing, my hand is writing, right? So there are differences that we attribute when we use the word I, we use it very loosely. For example, we don't say I am making my bone grow, right? My bone grows, but it's part of me. So why am I not saying I am making the eye bone grow? Is it voluntary versus involuntary? Then I shouldn't say I dream. I shouldn't say I breathe, right? So there are certain things that we use loosely. So we need to kind of be watchful for what we are using I for, and what really we mean when we say I. So if you start thinking about it, you will get a sense of what we mean by Atma. So that is kind of covers Atma. Then we will go into, we said there is Vyasti and Samasti. Vyasti is the microcosmic view of Atma, and the Samasti is the macrocosmic view of Atma, and that is what we call Brahman. So we have to talk about Shrishti. Shrishti is what is creation. And if you look at it, why Dvaita is so easy to adopt, because we all see ourselves as individuals. We all see ourselves, even if somebody says there's a soul. Nitin talked about soul in the last session. Soul is, in a definition, is almost like something which gives you life, and then when you die, it goes away. uh, it's very different from Atma. That's why it's not a good thing to call Atma as a soul, because soul in general is kind of like a life within you which goes away, while Atma is something that is always there, eternal. Whether that is the existence. We define it as existent consciousness and bliss, right? But in Dvaita, we think Atma, yeah, this is Jivatma, this is me, and then Paramatma, who is this huge guy, all powerful, running the whole galaxy. He's got all these things that he created, and he must be much more powerful than me. And that's what we're going to learn today, right? At the individual level, we talk about Atma and Anatma. In the cosmic level, we talk about Brahman and Maya. It's the same thing. Brahman is Atma and Maya is Anatma. Brahman, as I said, the root word of Brahman is Bra, which is big. So Brahman, if you really translate, it only means vast. It's vast. That's all it is. It doesn't say it's vast or he's vast or she's vast. It says vast, vastness. That's all Brahman is, right? Brahman is the same as Atma and Maya is the same as Anatma. And both Brahman and Maya are beginningless, because the existence of Maya is dependent on Brahman. So that's why we said Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya, right? So Maya is Mithya. It is dependent existence on Brahman. Brahman is the only one that exists independently, and Maya is a name and form, Nama Rupa of Brahman. But both of them are beginningless, because if you don't have the seed, you cannot get the manifestation. Brahman is changeless. It remains unchanged by any experience, anything that happens. But Maya is changing, right? We see the galaxies coming to life, dying, black holes coming, dying, etc. So stars bursting, etc. The seed form of the universe always existed in Nirvikalpa, again in a singularity, and that is called Maya. Maya then evolves into the universe and the body, right? It becomes the universe. Any material thing comes out of Maya. So what is Maya? Maya has three powers. It's called Sattva, Rajo, and Tamoguna. In this case, Maya's Sattva Guna, Maya's Rajoguna, and Maya's Tamoguna. Sattva-guna is the faculty of knowledge, or Jnana Shakti. Rajoguna is the faculty of action, which is Kriya Shakti. And Tamoguna is not Ichcha Shakti. I think when we talked about the Shaktis, we talked about Ichcha Shakti. In this case, it's called the Dravya Shakti. Dravya Shakti is your inertia. And what Tamoguna does, it actually suppresses the other two powers. Okay. So if inert objects have Dravya Shakti, that's why you can park your car outside and be happy that it will not run away. But if Elon Musk thinks it may run away also. But the thing is, there is something called inertia, which is pulling back the power of Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. So how does Maya evolve? Maya evolves in this way. First, in 4 steps. First step is the gunas and Maya mixed together to create Sukshma Bhuta Shakti, which is the subtle matter which is created. From the subtle matter, subtle worlds are created. Subtle worlds in Vedanta, what they're basically saying is, it's the world that we see plus, you've heard about Kailash, or you've heard about Swarga, or the ocean, the milk ocean where Vishnu resides. All these are supposed to be subtle worlds which exist, which we cannot see. And then from that, you create Stula Bhuta and Stula Bhautika, which is the gross elements and the gross body. So there are 4 steps to it. And how does each of these 5 basic Sukshma Bhutas get created, which is the subtle matter, subtle elements? First is Akasha, which is space. Positive matter of the first kind. It is associated with Shabda, right? It's with sound. In fact, they call it the Omkar, right? The space is supposed to have a sound, which today, I mean, they have found radio space. There is sound coming from space, and they attribute it to dark matter, whatever it is. There is still 94% of the universe which nobody understands, right? So, in that sense, I mean, I don't want to equate this to that, but the belief is Akasha was the first thing that was created, and that is associated with sound. Then comes air, which is associated with sound and touch, sparsha. Agni, which is with sabda, sparsha, and rupa, which is sight. And then water or jalam, which is shabda, sparsha, and rupa and rasa, which is taste. And then you have earth, which is somebody coming in? Okay, so sorry. And then finally earth, which is shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, which is smell as well, right? So those are subtle. They are still not actual space, air, and fire and water, but these are subtle matters. Now with that, how does it evolve? So these subtle matters combine with sattvic guna to really give the 5 jnana indriyas, right? Which is the ear, skin, eyes. That's why it's called jnana shakti, right? Sattvic is jnana shakti. And then it creates the inner organ, which is, I think Manu, you had asked this question whether they differentiate. They call it antaryami, which is your inner organs, the 4 functions, which is mind, intellect, memory, and ego. Mana, buddhi, chittam, and ahankar, right? All of those are created as a total of these. So each of these 5 create, like, it's equivalent to that sound and touch and, sight and stuff, right? So that's what comes from there. Then with rajasic quality, the same subtle elements combine to create your karma indriyas, which is your speech, your hands, legs, excretion, reproductive, and the 5 pranas, the pancha pranas. This is what we talked about when we talked about the sukshma shariram and stula shariram, right? The tamasic one, basically they say that gross elements, the space is 50%, predominantly space, with 1/8 of the rest combining to form the rest. Similarly, the stula air is 50% air and 1/8 of the rest, and so on and so forth. And the complete part, everything together, becomes your body. So that's how the evolution of Maya is discussed in Vedanta. That's how things come into place. So you also have a causal universe, which is Maya, just like Karana Prapancha. It's also called Karana Prapancha, Maya. And then you have the Sukshma Prapancha or Suksha Abhivyakti, which is the subtle universe. And then the Stula Abhivyakti, which is the gross universe. It's equivalent to our causal body, subtle body, and gross body, right, that we talked about. And all of these are inert, insentient, and it's made of matter, right? Inert becomes sentient only by borrowing consciousness from Brahman. We talked about it in the last session with respect to individuals. It's the same thing with respect to cosmic, macrocosmic, samasti also. So how does this come about? It is called reflected consciousness, right? So we have one original conscious, which is Atma. Let's call it Kosi, right? Original consciousness. If you take the body, the Jivatma, you have 3 bodies, which is the Karana, Sukshma, and Stula Sharira. And each of them reflects that one original consciousness. So it's like a mirror, right? The Karana Sharira reflects the original consciousness, and you get prajna, which is what we said, when you're in deep sleep, you are experiencing prajna. Then when the original consciousness reflects in the Sukshma Sharira, you get Taijasa. That's the dream state. That's what you were called when you were in the dream state. And then you have Vishwa, which is the waking state. So these are all reflected consciousness of that original consciousness. And this RC1 plus RC2 plus RC3 is what we call Jivatma. So when yesterday Kavita asked, or the last class, she asked whether there is, it's difficult to understand that we are all the same conscious. Now you will get it better, because you're talking about each of us reflecting one original consciousness, and we are just small mirrors which are reflecting that, right? And there are three different reflecting media which is reflecting, and the sum total of that is what we call jiva. The same thing, when we look at it from the macroscopic perspective, again it's the same. There's a causal universe, Antaryami, there is a subtle universe called Hiranyagarbha, and there is a gross universe called Virat. And these three also reflect the original consciousness. And these three together is what we call Paramatma or Ishvara, right? So that's why we feel there is a huge difference between Jivatma and Paramatma, because we see this huge big guy, and we are so small, limited in space. How can I be the same? And that is the reflection that we see. And if you look at the reflecting medium and the reflection, if you look at yourself in a concave mirror or a convex mirror, you see two different reflections. That doesn't mean the two are different, right? Just because you look in the rear view mirror and you see yourself as a small person, doesn't mean in reality you become small. So the original consciousness is distorted in two ways, in the Jivatma way and in the Paramatma way. And that's why you feel that Paramatma has superior qualities, and Jivatma has inferior qualities. Ultimately, it is the same. It's the quality, it seems to be, is not affected in the original consciousness. It's only the distortion that we see due to the reflecting media. If we remove the reflecting media, both consciousness is the same, which is the original consciousness. So the main lesson of Vedanta is that, or Advaita, is that Jivatma is the reflection of the original consciousness, and Paramatma is also the reflection of the original consciousness, and there is no difference between the two. If we focus on the reflections, then we'll see differences. If we remove the reflecting media, then we'll see that both Atma and Brahman are the same, right? The misconception of difference is due to the distortion. And once the reflecting media is removed, then you will see that Jivatma and Paramatma are the same, or Jiva Ishvara Aikyam, the oneness of Jivatma and Paramatma. That is the key message of Vedanta. So, the Mahavakyas are what we call equations, right? Why do we need equations? If the thing is very obvious that, oh, Jivatma and Paramatma are the same, like 5 equal to 5, you don't need an equation. If they are very different, then you can't have an equation. You can't say 5 equal to 6. But if they look different, 5 plus 4 equal to 10 minus 9, then you need an equation, right? And that's what Mahavakya is. Mahavakya in Vedanta is, the most famous one is Tattvam Asi. We've all heard of it. Tattvam Asi means that is you. So how do I understand that is you, or thou art that? Thou in this case doesn't refer to body or mind or intellect. It refers to your Atma. And therefore, the Atma that you have and the Atma that Paramatma has reflecting is the same. And that's what it means, right? And there are multiple such equations in the Vedas. I've taken 4 here from each Veda: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda. And each of them comes in a different Upanishad. Aitreya Upanishad says Prajnanam Brahma, which is pure consciousness is Brahman. Yajurveda says in Brihadaranya Upanishad, it says Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma. Chandogya Upanishad says Tattvam Asi, thou art that. Mandukya Upanishad says, I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman, right? So that is what is called Advaita Jnana. This is This is the essence of Advaita that we need to understand, and reveal the most important central theme. It's the oneness of Ishvara and Jivatma, or Jivatma and Paramatma. Shankara emphasizes this on everything being Brahman. Now, I added this my own observation, which is this could lead to two divergent conclusions. One is that I can say, oh, the truth is Brahman, therefore the individuated world that we see is an illusion, so it doesn't exist. Or you can deny the psychological importance of the second world, or this world that we see. And I think his approach is more towards saying, when you get that psychological, deny the psychological importance, you really get happiness, right? And that is kind of what he wanted, rather than to establish a ontological or a metaphysical reality. As long as you have Dvaita Jnanam, you will be stuck in this samsara. You will not have freedom. The moment you get this Jnanam, then you are released from samsara. And what do we get from this knowledge is called Jnana Phalam. And this will be the topic of the next session. Okay, so I guess today I went a bit longer than normal. I will stop sharing. And if there are questions, happy to take.
Session, I am a bit confused, because now that you said that Atma is the supreme consciousness, so when you talk about the soul in terms of the Atma, I would want to have a better clarity about that. And what about our karmas? So, as an individual, when we, are involved in the various interactions and the karmas that we create, how does that link with this Atma then?
That will be the next session. So I will talk about the law of karma in the next session, because that will conclude that really, that's the fruit of all this jnana. So that requires a dedicated session. So if you don't mind, keep that question. We'll take it up in the next session.
Thanks.
All right, so I typed a question for you in the chat box. Essentially, I've said mind is always seeking material things, mostly for the body, like whether it is in
Correct.
luxury car or air conditioning or whatever you might have it. But you said that it is spirituality is experiencing human beings and not the other way around. And mind seems to be the bigger order of things.
Yeah.
So why is it so difficult for normal people to control the mind, especially as it stress for the body?
Yeah. You should listen to Upasana Yoga session of mine. That's a pitch to the third video. But basically, you're so used to assuming you are the body, right? And that is the biggest problem. Now, I can give you a simple example, but you're joining this class only. But for example, if I see people joining this session, right? If I see Suresh and Nidhi, it's always Suresh always sits on this side, Nidhi always sits on that side. I see Aman and Anshu. Aman always sits on this side, Anshu always sits. Everybody has a position that they take. Why? Because the mind just gets attached to that. We think that is our original position. If Nidhi wants to sit there, Suresh is going to say, that's my place. Now, that's so temporary. We still get attached to it, right? If you assume your mind, your consciousness, and your Atma, you going through this body, your Sukshma Shariram has gone through multiple bodies for eternity. How attached are you to that body? Extremely attached. That's why it's so difficult for you to think different from what your body wants. How to control your mind? You can get control of your mind. But that you need practice. And that's why, say, Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga. So we are jumping directly into Jnana Yoga. Doesn't mean you will get moksha, right? We are still questioning a lot of these things. There's a process to it. And the process is to do karma yoga, to do upasana yoga, and then come to jnana yoga. But this is like seeing a preview of the movie, and if you really like it, I have to go through that process anyway. It's not possible for me to graduate just because I see one PhD paper and I feel thrilled about it. I won't be given a PhD. I still have to go through graduation, post-graduation, and submit my own paper.
Okay, I'll watch the other 3 videos.
Any other questions? I know I went a little bit fast on the cosmology because it's very similar to the Jivatma cycle that we went through, right? It's just a different association to it. So hopefully, if you go through the deck once more, you'll get it. But the main takeaway from this is there is only one Atma, which is the original consciousness, and we are all like mirrors reflecting it. It's just like the moonlight. We say moonlight, but there is no moonlight. It's the sunlight which is reflecting off the moon and coming here, right? We still say, oh, moon is less brighter than the sun, but moon has no brightness of its own. Just like that, Jivatma and Paramatma are reflecting that ultimate Atma, and that's what we see.
Uncle, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Brahma and Maya, right?
Brahman.
Brahman and Maya. Isn't there a duality coming up there? So does that mean Maya also contains Brahman inside it?
No, so that's why I said Maya is mithya. It has no independent existence, right? If Brahman is not there, Maya is not there. So there is only Brahman. Maya is a material existence. It's a name and form of Brahman, right? And that's what we see. So that's why when you say, when people say Advaita says material world is unreal, it's not saying it's unreal. It's saying it has no independent existence. The existence of this physical world is because of your consciousness. If there is no consciousness, there is no physical world, right? It is real. We all experience, I mean, in the sense that, reality as defined is independent existence. That's why we said the table is solid. We can feel it. But if there is no wood, there is no table because it's only name and form, right? So Maya is like that. Maya is just name and form. But I'll tell you an interesting anecdote I heard. Apparently, Vivekananda was very pleased with one of his students, and he said, "You can ask me anything you want." So the student asked, "Can you tell me what Maya is?" So he said, "Can you ask another question?" Because it's not that easy to comprehend what Maya is. But of course, he apparently explained to him what Maya is. And in that explanation, during that explanation, the disciple really felt one with, he could feel that oneness. And he addressed Vivekananda as tum instead of aap. And when he because he didn't feel the difference, we were all together. And when he said tum, suddenly everything came back because he felt that, suddenly he lost that sense of infinite and came back. That's the story. But anyway, so I'm just telling you, Maya is not an easy concept. Brahman is easy concept to understand. Maya is a little bit more difficult to understand.
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like everybody understood or nobody understood. So
No, so I would be very honest, Sri. There were points in the lecture today, or there were slides which I understood immediately, instantly, and I was pretty pleased with myself. But obviously, I lost it a little bit, when it came to the cosmic side of things and the whole cosmology part. So I don't know. I mean, if at some point in time, maybe offline, I'll get that revised a little bit.
Sure. No, so
there were certain portions which were instantaneous, in terms of my understanding.
Yeah. No, I did spend a lot of time on consciousness today because there were some questions. So the cosmology got a little compressed. But I can revise a little bit in the next session.
It probably merits a complete session on its own, I think.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you, Shri.
Thanks, Sri.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shri.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sri.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Namaste.